Make more of the things you actually want to do and less of the things you don't want to do. It's kind of common sense, but it also is maybe not so common sense. So here is how it works out. If you want to do more of the things you want to do, you basically have to make them easier. And if you want to make less of the things you want to do, you have to make them harder. This means whenever you go grocery shopping, so this is something I used in the past and also I am currently using. I, for example, only go to a certain store and I only buy good stuff there. I don't buy anything that's not good. So anything that's not very healthy and anything that I wouldn't consider the optimal diet, so to speak. And for everything else, so this means I go to this store and if I then would buy a cheat, for example, I try to stick to low carb, but only like every second day, I guess. So the thing is, whenever I then would buy something that's not low carb, I just would go to a different store and not like only one store, not like different stores, but only one store. So there are a few different stores in the country I live in, which is Germany, and I just use one store for buying crap and I use the other store for buying healthy stuff. What this actually makes is it makes thinking easier, because if I can convince myself to go to the store where I only get the healthy stuff, and I don't have to convince myself really, because I already made this into a habit, going once a week to the store where I get the healthy stuff, and this means that I also have the healthy stuff right away in my fridge and also in the kitchen. This means whenever I get hungry and I happen to be in the kitchen or I happen to go to the kitchen, there is just healthy stuff. And for the other stuff, I don't buy the other stuff on stock. I only buy the healthy stuff on stock. This means whenever I have, for example, a craving for carbs or for something sugary or fruit or something, because let's face it, fruit is not really low carb, I have to go to the other store, which takes time and takes, you actually have to go to the other store, and it's also money you don't really need to spend, since it's just like money you spend on psychologically, on fulfilling the psychological need for something. So this is basically how I made grocery shopping easier for myself. Not really easier in general, but easier to get the right things, to buy basically the things I want to buy, instead of buying things or to end up buying things that I don't want to buy. Because let's face it, a supermarket is nothing else than, well, I don't have a very good comparison right now, but the thing is, if you go into a supermarket, the supermarket is kind of designed to make you buy crap, because most of the things you can buy in a supermarket are pretty much crap. In very many things is sugar, and sugar actually, not only it makes you crave food more, but not like sugary foods, but any food, because there is just the effect that, there are different effects in place, but it actually doesn't change your taste, if this makes sense to you, but it also just increases you wanting food without actually the taste itself. It just increases. It's basically a drug effect. So, and this is also the reason why it's in so many things, because it makes things not only tastier, but it makes you psychologically, not really psychologically, more physiologically crave the things, or just food in general, more. So therefore, what I wanted to try to say is, basically most of the stuff you can buy in a supermarket, apart from like a toilet paper and basically vegetables and fruits, and also like, it depends of course what your diet is, and thinking of something like crap, or like being crap or healthy, of course, is also another simplification. That's also the reason why we as a human species think so much as in black and white, as in everything is good or everything is bad. It's either a good day or a bad day. Of course, it's never a good day or a bad day, because these two things are extremes and most reality happens in between. And therefore, the the psychological effect is already there, but you can also use the psychological effect to your advantage. It's either the healthy food store, and the healthy food store is basically always there for you because you just buy the stuff on stock for the whole week, and the other store is just harder. The stuff is basically harder to get because you actually have to drive to the store. If you wanted to take it even further, you could say that within the radius, so this was also basically something I tried in the past to stick to a no sugar rule for basically, a long time, which was something I came up with. The problem is that if you try to stick to low sugar, and it's turning into a sugar video, I guess, but if you are trying to do a low sugar diet, then what's happening is that whenever you want to experience foreign food, for example, and you are traveling and you want to experience the food, then there often is also sugar in it. And the problem then is that you couldn't taste the different food or the new food because there's also sugar in it. Therefore, it kind of limits your the things you can taste in the future whenever you would go traveling and experience a different culture and a different country and a different food, because that's maybe something you want to do. So therefore, what I created, and this was ultimately something that was not very smart, I guess, what I created is a exception. And the exception was wherever I lived within a radius of 100 kilometers where I lived, I just wouldn't buy sugary foods or foods with sugar in it. And apart, if I was like out of this 100 kilometer radius, I could actually try something. This prevented me, and also, of course, have to define living. What is living? I define it by either 1 week or 2 weeks or a month living at this place. Therefore, theoretically, if you had the craving, you could, but you would have to drive 100 kilometers to somewhere else, to a store somewhere else, and then actually get the food and then get back, which would be very stupid, I guess. And that's already the thing. It's not like a total no-go. You could still do it. It's just very hard. And that's the basic principle. You just make the things you want to do very, very easy. For example, if you want to make yourself record more on your phone because you actually try to do videos like this, then what you could theoretically do is just buy all the stuff you need instead of trying to stick with stuff that's like 10 years old. For example, I tried to record on my old phones for years, not for years, but I tried it, and it didn't really work, and I would have to have an external mic, and now I have just this external mic connected to my phone, and this wouldn't have never been possible with the other phones, with the old phones I had. Also, just recording the video onto the phone is already a wonder, I think, because it just looks so good, and the portrait effect is kind of sometimes even better than the portrait effect you would get out of a professional camera, because you can actually, you can zoom in and zoom out on a phone, which is something you cannot really do, because you would have to get different lenses, but that's not really the point. The point is making the things you want to do very easy and making the things you don't want to do very hard. Then there is also something else you could theoretically use, which is called a habit, but that's a story for another time. And I guess this is the end. So, in summary, make the things you want to do very hard, very easy, and make the things you don't want to do very hard by using these very simple principles.